How can I harness office gossip positively and creatively? Welcome to Perfection's Antidote. I'm Belinda Brummer.
And I'm Tracy Kites.
We're on a mission to help you navigate the situations you might find yourself in at work. In each episode, we'll bring you
one question,
2 perspectives,
3 takeaways. Our aim here is to keep it real, simple, filter-free.
If you enjoy learning tools that help you lead and work better, subscribe to this podcast and please do leave a review. If you have any questions for the show, please send them to us. You'll find a link about how to do this in the show notes. Tracy, today we have a question from Sophie. She's from London, is a product manager in a small games development company. And her question, and I'll read it for us, sounds like this. I never thought I'd say this, but our office gossip queen might be our secret weapon. I've always seen Sarah's chatter as a distraction, but last month her, in quotes, grapevine caught wind of a competitor's move before our official channels did. It gave us a crucial head start. Now I'm realising that informed networks might be as valuable as our formal ones. How can I ethically harness this power of informal communication without encouraging unprofessional behaviour? I'll just repeat her question there, Tracy, because that was a lot of context that she gave. Thank you very much, Sophie. So her question is, how can I harness office gossip positively and creatively and ethically, I think is really key there.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think all of us have been in professional situations where we hear gossip or just conversation or things that people say, and it's a fine line, I think, between what's professional and what's not professional. I really like this question because it reminded me of a piece of theory that's a bit dear to my heart, really, and it's called tend and befriend. In theoretical terms, it links to what knowledge most of us have around fight or flight reactions. So we know that in danger times, the primary part of our brain goes into fight or flight mode. It helps us to decide what to do. And I'm not surprised that this comment is about a woman, and not for the reasons that you might think. I mean, unfortunately, generally it's felt that it's women that do gossip in the workplace. It is actually not.
I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah. It's not a gender-based issue. Conversation happens valuably across all genders. So the tend and befriend theory is linked to research around fight and flight. So what's known there is that fight-flight mode tends to be, very general here. So just take this as it's intended. Fight-flight happens most often in males. Females deal with those kinds of situations in quite a different way. And if you take that back to the dawn of our time, early man, if you like, early woman, if you're a woman in a dangerous situation and you have young children that you're caring for or you're pregnant, fight or flight is not useful to you. So what women have tended to evolve to do is build networks, because there's safety in numbers, there's safety in situations where there's a lot of you group together, you take care of your children together in a community type situation. So women tend to tend and befriend, whereas men tend to fight or flight, evolutionarily speaking. So what you get in an office situation or any work situation or any social situation is that women have evolved to be much better networkers, communicators, because it feeds into our primary mode of being safe. So the tend befriend popped into my head as soon as you read that. So it's a good, solid way for women, but in modern age, or all genders, to be safe in the workplace, but also, read competitive and informed and successful. So for me, this is about how do we capture what's really positive that's going on here, that's really beneficial to our bottom line, to the hard business that we're here to carry out. And clearly, I think Sophie has found that it's easy to be feeling negative when you hear gossip, but actually it really does have positive outcomes if you deal with it right. What were your thoughts when you first read out that question, Belinda?
So I think I kind of landed in a similar place as you, but my first question is as well, what is gossip? And, gossip, when I think of gossip, I think of people just talking about people with not necessarily with ill intent, but not intentionally. Its purpose really is just to make a connection with the person that you're talking with, but what you're talking about is not about that person. It's about other people who are not there to represent themselves. And it just, gossip in its nature feels bad. It feels like something I don't want to be a part of. But actually, what you've said there around how women create networks, what immediately came to mind is the alternative way of thinking about gossip and what gossiping achieves. It is actually relationship building. And so in the workplace, if we think about intent and we think about the purpose and we think about talking about people who are not there to represent themselves, if it is with the intention of building relationships in order to gather information that is valuable, I think that there are relationship building skills that can be developed that take perhaps a tendency to gossip or a habit to gossip and actually turn that into something that is valuable, is useful, is respectable and respectful. And so drawing attention to the relationship building skills part of the gossip element may help to really turn the tide on the intent of that gossip and what it feels like either to be part of the gossiping group or to be somebody who you hear you were gossiped about, right? So on the one hand, it's skills. So it's the relationship building skills that are based on value and integrity. But then you've got to bring it into the professional realm. And that means that you've got to design the processes that those skills sit within. And so in many companies, particularly, for example, sales and marketing environments, you hear what's happening in the market. Customer service people might hear from their customers what's happening. Well, the very best way to deal with it in a professional context is to have mechanisms where that information is formally and in a consistent manner fed back into the organization in a way that the organization can do something about it, that it is visible, that it is a fair transfer of information, and that ultimately the information can be verified and can be validated over time, so that it's not a piece of gossip that sits out there and is supposition and just kind of does the rounds unvalidated and gathers speed or momentum without any real validity. And so if I can sum my thinking up there, it's the difference between gossip and information is perhaps the skills that go into it and the context in which it is done and the intent with which it is done, and to turn it into something that is valuable. So going back to Sophie's question around how can you turn this habit of gossiping into something that is ethical, but that you can actually use the power of what that person is able to bring out in other people in terms of sharing information and ears on the ground, so to speak. It's about developing a positive skill of relationship building and then building the processes and the mechanisms around it that give it a professional, credible feeling and context in which it lands.
Yeah. And I find that when you enable groups of adults to talk about these kinds of things, we're all able to set our own ground rules around this, and we're all able to be professional. So certainly when I work with groups of leaders in whatever context, I always talk to them about them setting their own ground rules. And I think as leaders, we can all be in our teams and be doing those things. And it's as simple as, okay, we had this situation. Moving forwards, we want to capture these kinds of pieces of information and the way that we discuss those and feed them into the work that we do. But what are our ground rules? How do we set those ground rules between the things that are acceptable to talk about and the things that really aren't for us as a team. And those things are self-fulfilling for me. I think if you trust groups of people to come up with their appropriate or inappropriate sets of rules, they will. They absolutely will. So it's about facilitating your team to set their ground rules. It's not okay to talk in a derogatory way about each other or people in the business or anyone really. But if we've got information that's coming to us from our networks, how do we feed that in? How do we talk about that? How do we record those pieces of information informally and formally through the work that we do?
To circle back to the context in which Sophie sets her question, and that is, this person has a habit, Sara has a habit of gossiping, and it was in the context of that habit of gossiping that she happened to find some information that she brought back into the organisation and was able to do something with. And so what you're talking about in terms of leaders creating boundaries and the ground rules for how do we manage our relationships and how do we personally show up here in the workplace in general, that's definitely the leader's role in terms of setting those boundaries. And then going on to say, but let's harness that ability to develop relationships and to do something more important and valuable and credible with that. So it's both the context in which the gossiping is happening, but then using that power of the person having those relationships to really do something with information that comes out of it, so that you're not just saying you can't talk, you can't be part of those kind of conversations. So I think there's definitely room to turn that habit and that need or that desire to do that into something that is useful and valuable and ethical, I think as well is really important. The question we've pondered here was, how can I harness office gossip positively and creatively? Now, your power of 3. Think about tend and befriend to reframe your view of gossip. Decide whether the chatter is positive or harmful, relationship building or relationship harmful. Talk about it openly with your team. Facilitate them to set ground rules about what is and isn't acceptable to bring to the workplace. Agree the ways that you will bring information to the table and create a safe and ethical space for people to share what they know. This might be formally in meetings or informally. Did something we talk about spark something in you? An idea or a memory? Please share it with us in the comments below. Follow us. We're real and unfiltered. This show is brought to you by, well, us. Tracy Kite is a leadership and management development specialist, executive coach, and author of Lead Like You Give an F. And I'm the founder of Boost Learning, a boutique ecosystem that nurtures better managers and leaders. I also help organizations amplify their culture, train their people, and build better community connections through podcasting.